This is the Yanks Go Yard podcast with Adam Weinrib and Thomas Carinante.
Welcome.
This is the Yanks Go Yard podcast with Adam Weinrib and Thomas Carinante.
Welcome.
All right. Welcome to a Monday live edition of the Yanks Go Yard podcast. I'm Adam Weinrib alongside Thomas Carinante. Medicals. You guys want medicals? We got your medicals. The New York Yankees slept through the first 72 or so hours of the post-lockout landscape, the frenzy, all that good stuff. And yet, they came back with a vengeance Sunday night, and then they got vengeanced on Monday afternoon. We're going to be bringing down every angle we can of the Gary Sánchez, Urshela trade that resulted in Josh Donaldson's arrival in the Bronx. Plus, there's got to be something else that drops, right? Well, it dropped for somebody else. It dropped for the Oakland A's and the Atlanta Braves on Monday afternoon. So now the Yankees are left scrambling. Who's your first baseman? Is it somebody who's already on the roster? And everybody who assessed the first trade and said, okay, well, fine, we've still got an incomplete offseason. You might want to reassess. And also some special messages reserved for the people who guaranteed Olson would be a Yankee and who guaranteed Carlos Correa would be a Yankee. One of those was always more foolish than the other one, but both of them will not happen at this point in time. Make sure to find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Drop us a 5-star review along with a mailbag question. We will be some days more than happy to answer it, some days less than happy to answer it. Today is one of those where I'm fervently in the middle. I have no idea what's going on. The Yankees can't be done, but they also might be done. Thomas Carinante, welcome to the podcast. Why do we need this first news dropping at 10:30 p.m. at night, by the way, after an empty weekend? We got to pack it all into Sunday night?
What do you mean, why? This is the shit they do. We've explored every goddamn option this offseason. Every single option you could dream of. Every trade scenario. We did not account for Josh Donaldson in any of them. He's making $25 million a year for the next 2 years when you account his buyout. How does that fit the Yankees' plans? We did talk about Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, but we did not predict he would get traded to the Twins first and then to the Yankees. We did talk about Gary Sánchez trades, but we prefaced everything with, quote, this probably won't happen, but here we go. We did the same thing with Gio Urshela trades. This probably won't happen. He's a cost-effective third baseman, can kind of do it all when he's fully healthy and ready to go. Seems to be right up the Yankees' alley. No. Of course, the Yankees do this at 10:30 on a Sunday. Of course, it's the last thing you expect, and it's completely out of left field. Of course, it changes the complexion of the entire roster, and you really don't know how to think about the potential consequences. I really still don't know how I feel about it. The one positive I do take away is that you're upgrading on the left side of the infield, you could say. I think you feel differently about Donaldson than I do. Mm-hmm. You're a little bit more high on it. The reason I like the Donaldson move is because he's that personality that the Yankees lack. The bad news on that front is he had this beef with Garrett Cole. I know they talked it out. Garrett Cole and Josh Donaldson spoke to the media today and addressed that. So I guess that's behind us, and we're all ready to take it head first going into the season. So I do like that we're getting that characteristic that we lack. And defensively at shortstop, certainly upgrading. Kiner-Falefa is coming off a full year at shortstop, did very well after winning the Gold Glove at third base back in 2020. But you're conflicted because Gio, everybody loved Gio. Gio was not, there was nobody said bad things about Gio. And it's kind of it's frustrating because he's a fan favorite, and it's the same type of situation with Luke Voit. It's like Gio was arguably like a top 3 or 4 player on the Yankees in 2020 and 2019 and 2020 with those seasons that he put forth. And then 1 year he's plagued by injuries. And then the Yankees are like, all right, see ya. Same thing with Luke Voit, one of the best Yankees hitters when he's fully healthy. Then the injuries only reach a certain point for the Yankees to get frustrated with him. And then he falls out of favor. Although Brian Cashman just said he's the starting first baseman right now. So, but they also said on Sunday that Gio Urshela will be the starting shortstop. So a lot of things to digest here. So most importantly, my takeaways, great addition, defensively, shortstop. That's what we need. Remember, guys, Yankees don't need the best players at every position. They just need to not be absolutely detrimental at a handful of important ones. Importing a personality like Donaldson, who's going to, you would think, rally the troops, bring guys together, bring out that fire in a number of guys where it's seemingly non-existent. And I think Gary Sanchez's situation, I think it's hilarious and kind of upsetting how this is how it's going to end, a trade to the Twins. But this is, I think, a year overdue. He needs a change of scenery. The Yankees need to move on. The fan base needs something else to debate and be at each other's throats about. So that's kind of where I'm at here. Still a little bit confused and not really sure where this is going to take us, but change is good, especially when it concerns a couple of guys where you were kind of unsure about how they would, be performing heading into next season.
I think change is good. I know change is good. I was ready for change. And I was ready to end my time with Gary Sanchez. And I'm happy to talk to the rest of the fan base about that. And if the fact remains that at this point, they've now traded Gary Sanchez. And the best thing you can say about Gary Sanchez is that it's really hard to replicate that production from any other catcher on the market. And that I understand. The Gary Sanchez ceiling is higher than probably higher than anybody in baseball. And even the Gary Sanchez that we got last year, roughly league average, occasional power explosions, very poor defense, the career-defining Mets play where he couldn't get the tag down on Jonathan Villar, who was 25 feet away from home plate. That version of Gary Sanchez, even that version of Gary Sanchez, there are not that many catchers who are overall going to put up more numbers than that subpar fringe average version of Gary Sanchez. But I'm fairly confident you can't win a title with Gary Sanchez as your primary catcher. That one specifically, he certainly has not improved since 2017. And again, the fact that we lost out on that ring in 2017 continues to sting and sting more with every day because every piece got worse except for Aaron Judge. The financials got more unstable. The players who debuted got worse. Everybody got older, and it's a missing ring in the cabinet. So now Gary Sanchez is gone. And if the best you can say is that he theoretically could have maybe put up a roughly league average season that he did last year, and pie in the sky puts up an all-star campaign, but we didn't see anything close to that last year or the year before. 2019, he became an all-star on the strength of April and May. 2018 was one of the worst full seasons you'll ever see from a catcher offensively and defensively. At this point, I'm sort of done debating that. I was ready to roll for one more year with Gary Sanchez if I had to, because the team was telling me
they got me. I was ready. I was
theoretically ready. I wasn't endorsing it, but now that he's gone, like that is a breath of fresh air for sure.
Yeah.
I'm not celebrating his departure. I'm very sad that his tenure turned out the way it did, but I think we learned once and for all over the past couple of years that it wasn't going to happen. And I certainly think we learned that the New York Yankees were not paying Gary Sanchez a second contract, which they were going to have to do at the end of this year anyway. So if you're not going to do that, you might as well explore alternatives. Now, I didn't think the alternative was going to be Ben Rortvedt. That is one thing that I will say. I didn't think the third piece in the Donaldson-Kiner-Falefa trade was going to be the option for the Yankees behind the plate in a left-handed platoon with Kyle Higashioka. That feels like you've made the team worse. Now, show me something. Maybe your magic works. Maybe Higashioka and Ben Rortvedt both hit 240 with above average defense, and they're gunning runners out. And the Rortvedt's biceps are changing my life. And I can look back on this in May and be like, wow, it really is possible to win baseball games with a 240 hitting defense first catcher platoon, which so many Gary Sanchez acolytes told me was not possible over the last several years. And I should be thankful that I had Gary Sanchez in place. Instead, I would learn so much if Ben Rortvedt ends up being a winning player for the Yankees. But it's way more important to talk about, the remainder of this trade. Just breathing in and breathing. I'm just breathing in and breathing out. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa is the best stopgap shortstop option, right? He really probably is. He's like an 85, 90 OPS plus, bad, but hits 270, 280, will bat ninth in the order, does everything that a certain sect of Yankee fans have wanted for a long time. Bat on ball, advancing runners, speed, stole 20 bases last year, Gold Glove defense, can play short, can play second, can play third. Like there's a lot to like there. He's better than Andrew Velasquez. Even Andrew Velasquez accidentally was about as good as Isaiah Kiner-Falefa was last year.
Yeah.
So if we're not going to get Correa, which we're not, we never, ever in a million years we're going to get Carlos Correa. Now that's a fact. Now everybody who said to bookmark me last week when I said the Yankees weren't getting Carlos Correa, I would like you to revisit that bookmark. The Yankees are not getting Carlos Correa. I would not be shocked if Carlos Correa signs somewhere else during this podcast. The Yankees are not going to get Carlos Correa. The New York Yankees are not going to get Carlos Correa. They never would have. They never will. They never, even at the expiration of this contract, the Yankees are not going to get Carlos Correa. So after saying no to Corey Seager, Connor Falefa is pretty much the best you can hope for. They're not going to get Trevor Story either. Trevor Story on a 2-year deal is the real best you can hope for. But again, another thing that's not going to happen. So you take your deep breath and you move on. Josh Donaldson in a vacuum is putting up some crazy numbers last year. The advanced metrics on Josh Donaldson last year, he's like 99, 95. He's in the red heat zone on every hard hit metric. Absolute beast of a season. Even people who say Josh Donaldson fell off, you're saying that because of his calf injury that took him off the Blue Jays. He had 127 and 126 OPS pluses in his past 2 full seasons, which really were kind of full seasons. That's 135 games and 155 games, I believe. Both of those totals more than fine for the 2020 New York Yankees. When Josh Donaldson's on the field, he hits. Josh Donaldson has been on the field more often than not in 2019 and 2021. 2020, I think a lot of people got chronically injured. And so Josh Donaldson also missed plenty of games in the season that never happened and never counted. But he plays more than you might think, and he is a genuine offensive threat, something Gio Urshela was not last year after the rocket ball was gone. Something Gary Sánchez has never been since early 2019. It has just not been the same for Gary Sánchez. Now, reasons to hate this deal, there's a hole at catcher. Again, say what you will about Gary Sánchez. Having 2 defensive first platoon guys feels like a legitimate downgrade until I see differently. It's the only way, offensive downgrade. Offensive downgrade. Yeah. I don't know if it's going to be a defensive downgrade. I mean, it's not going to be a defensive. If it's a defensive downgrade, the Yankees have a genuine problem. But it's going to be an offensive downgrade behind the plate, even from the boring modern Gary Sánchez version that we were used to. But that's a hole now. Center field, still a hole. First base, still a hole. And if you're going to use DJ LeMahieu at first base now, weird hole. Donaldson at third, Kiner Falefa at short, DJ and Glaber at second, DJ and Voit at first. Because, by the way, after we'll get to that news later, but Brian Cashman saying Luke Voigt's your first baseman now, which is that the same energy as Gio Urshela as your shortstop from yesterday morning? Or is that genuinely saying Luke Voigt's first baseman? I don't know. We'll talk about it in a little bit. But Thomas, do you want to focus on the financials of this a little bit? Because I have given the rosier picture and said, hey, Josh Donaldson, 130 OPS plus guy. It's an above average bat. It's tenacity and it's anger, but the money is a ton. And when I thought, and the rest of us thought that the Yankees were going to all right, maybe we're blow by the luxury tax guys now. Maybe we go out and trade for Matt Olson the next day and Sean Manaea and Sean Murphy. Well, Matt Olson's gone, and we'll address that next. But without a second move, the Yankees are just paying for Josh Donaldson's age 36 and 37 seasons, something they wouldn't pay for so many other helpful pieces in the past.
Yeah, I'm not angry about it because, once again, I don't give a shit how much money they spend. I just want it to be appropriated for the right things. And after all the stinginess over the years, Garrett Cole has been the only big free agent signing since 2013 or whatever it was.
Yeah, 13, 14 with Tanaka and all those guys.
Yeah. That was the biggest one. Giancarlo Stanton, guys, that was not a free agency deal. That was a trade. I understand there is a little bit of a caveat there because he had the largest contract in the sport at the time. But the Yankees also had a much lower payroll at that juncture, worked to get under the luxury tax that following season to make sure it didn't affect them, and now see value in his later years. So Josh Donaldson it's just a weird acquisition to me. And also passing on Carlos Rodon, pairing these together is very bizarre because if you look at Gio Urshela was set to earn about $15 million total when you account for arbitration increases over the next 2 years. So $15 million total for a starting third baseman who hits above league average during his majority of his time with the Yankees. So now you're paying $35 million for Josh Donaldson, who before these last couple of years had dealt with injuries. I don't think he's injury prone, but that calf issue for those couple of years was pretty alarming, and you just don't know what's going to happen as these players reach their later 30s, it's difficult to kind of comprehend. And it's like, okay, well, why didn't we just spend more money on starting pitching last year? Or why didn't we spend more money on starting pitching this year? Or why didn't we decide to upgrade with a lefty bat before the season last year, even though we knew we only had Aaron Hicks and Brett Gardner, and that was going to be what we relied upon? So it was like we needed these fringe acquisitions last year and the year before to just spend a little bit more and go over the luxury tax and really put the team in better position. And now it's just like a misplaced extra $35 million investment when you compare the departure of Gio and the addition of Donaldson. And I know other factors come with it. Look, Donaldson over the last 2 full seasons he's played, I'm not counting 2020 because it's dumb and it doesn't really serve anybody. 2019, 155 games, 2021, 135 games. In 2019, he hit 267 with a 9 OPS with runners in scoring position. 2021, it was 253 with an 801 OPS. Yankees are missing that. Yankees are missing a lot of that in their lineup. Only a handful of guys are able to produce in those clutch situations. And then you look at 2019 and 2021 for, quote, late and close, as Baseball Reference notes it, 250 with an 860 OPS in 2019, 263 with a 996 OPS in 2021. I know the factors are a little bit different because you're playing in Minnesota. The stakes aren't exactly high, but Josh Donaldson's no stranger to contenders. If his bat's going to come out in the right time, if his attitude's going to come out in the right time when this team needs it, I'll certainly view this as a worthwhile acquisition. But just the manner in which the Yankees are spending money here, we're looking at all these top free agent options fly off the board that are also fits. We're watching these trade options go elsewhere that are also fits, and the Yankees have the requisite depth in the farm system to make it happen. And then you're like, $50 million for Josh Donaldson? Like, I'm fine with it, but why? What's going on? So that's my only beef with it, I guess you could say. But I think it makes the team better. I don't think his defense is that much better than Gio's over the last few years. It doesn't, I watch them both regularly. I know the advanced metrics will tell you otherwise. But I don't think there's a marked difference there where you're like, oh yeah, absolutely. But Donaldson's consistency at the plate, power numbers, ability to work walks, I think is superior to Gio's. But then on the other hand, Gio is a little bit more versatile on the defensive end. So take what you can get here. I was just puzzled because you're spending, that 35 extra million, and then you pass on Rodon after being willing to go that length of distance with Justin Verlander. So just confusing to me because Rodon's coming off a career best season. I know the injury concerns are there, but they said the medicals were good. Verlander, age 39 season, coming off Tommy John surgery, 6 innings pitched since 2020. Sometimes I just don't get where their head is at with the investments, but hey, I don't disagree with this. So I think I feel good about it in that sense.
Brian wants to bring Anthony Rizzo on board and then trade Glaber and Voit for Ketel Marte and Carson Kelly. Carson Kelly, I'm down with. Ketel Marte, I'm down with. That's just going to probably cost the Matt Olson package. And Anthony Rizzo, just got to be vaccinated, my man. You just got to be vaccinated, my dude. Because last year was a problem, right? It was definitely annoying when people weren't vaccinated. Aaron Judge just mysteriously missed a lot of time. Extra time to get himself cleared, to come back and get vaccinated. It was bothersome. Now, these guys can't go to Toronto, so you're losing people for 9 games in a crucial division battle. Not sure why you would sign or acquire someone who can't play in a huge chunk of your American League East games. And there's still a private sector mandate in New York. There's still a Kyrie Irving bothering rule that's knocked him out of Brooklyn Nets games. And I don't think that's going to be any different for the Yankees. I really don't. We're about to find out, but I really don't. I think some of you are going to have to, Yes Network shares the Yankees and Nets. I think some of you are going to have to gird yourselves for having the same level of annoyance that you currently have about why Kyrie Irving can sit courtside and watch the game without a mask, but can't play for the Brooklyn Nets. It's a crazy thing to watch. And I do think the Yankees have to maybe worry about that in about a month. The good vibes are over. How long did the good vibes last, Thomas? It was like 3 days. Baseball was unlocked. We heard there was going to be a free agency frenzy on Thursday night. It didn't happen. Friday, a bunch of people signed, but not Yankees. Saturday, same deal. Chris Bassett went to the Mets. Another good Yankee fit. We decided not to do that. And then Sunday, all hell broke loose. Again, I'm going to miss Gio Urshela. I'm going to miss what Gary Sánchez could have been. I'm really not going to miss having Gary Sánchez on the roster. And it's a reality that we were going to have to face next year anyway. I don't want that to be the way that I feel, but it is. And I wish him well, and I'm rooting for him in Minnesota. And I certainly, if Gary Sánchez goes off as the DH part-time catcher in Minnesota, that'll be great. But it is more proof that the Yankees, like you have said this morning, we're in the tank in the wrong direction, because goes to Minnesota and he immediately is someone who is a backup catcher and a DH option. And the Yankees for years are saying he's our starter and we're not going to examine other things. And I guess part of this is the Giancarlo Stanton trade, but you've got Higashioka starting on opening day. You've got Higashioka starting on game 1 of the, all the playoff series that they've ever played. That's just, now your number one catcher is now your starting catcher. So there you go. And if there's no Sean Murphy move to follow this, it's just patently crazy. And speaking of, I guess let's talk about the other bomb that just dropped.
Woo!
Yesterday was a day of rebirth, of re-envisioning things, of Josh Donaldson and Garrett Cole breaking bread and talking about how much they hate each other. So many weird things to come to terms with. But above all else, everybody sort of said, well, all right, well, let's wait and see what the Yankees do next, because there has to be a next move. There might still be a next move, but unfortunately, Mike Axisa of CBS Sports, former Yankee blogger, former River and Avenue Blues, it seems to be the one who has it correct so far, because last night when the Yankees made this bizarre trade, he tweeted something to the effect of, there has to be another move coming for the team that willingly gave Rougned Odor 130 games last year. And I looked at it and kind of was like, yeah, maybe, probably. And then here we are. Matt Olson, a perfect fit for the New York Yankees, went from Oakland to the Atlanta Braves just before we started recording. The package was many of the Braves' top prospects. Catcher Shea Langeliers is in the top 10. Christian Pache and outfielder. He's still the Braves' number 1 prospect, but he hit 111 during his big league time. He has performed extremely poorly, and he was the headliner of this trade. So more proof that prospects are unpredictable, but also more proof that the Yankees are just on a different planet than the other teams that are having to make these trades. If the Yankees had Christian Pache and they were offering him, that's basically the Miguel Andujar, Clint Frazier package that you guys have all laughed at so fucking hard, so funny for the last 4 years. Clint Frazier not on the team anymore, and I'm still hearing chatter about the Yankees offering that in a trade package. If the Yankees offered a guy who hit 100 in the big leagues over a significant sample size, people would be laughing it off the same way. Poverty package, embarrassing. Oswald Peraza and Anthony Volpe are both better than Christian Pache at this point. But Olson goes to the Braves. The Braves do not tell Freddie Freeman that they're making this Olson trade, according to Joel Sherman. They didn't even inform him. They just pulled the trigger and said, great.
What is wrong with people?
What is wrong with the Atlanta Braves specifically?
It's just disgusting.
That's insane behavior, especially if you watch the parade last year where every player is going, oh, I got one more thing to say, re-sign Freddie, and the whole crowd is chanting, and the Braves were just like, we're not going to do that. Thank you. They didn't even tell him. So Freeman's now down to 2 options. It's the Dodgers and the Yankees. The Braves apparently were never even really serious. The Blue Jays have checked in. The Rays have checked in. The Yankees could just finish this off, right? Angry Freeman, 6 years, 180. They could just do that. They could just say that the Donaldson trade signaled that they're willing to go crazy. They get up to 260, 270 AAV overall on the payroll. I mean, of course, they shed some money yesterday getting rid of Sánchez and Urshela. They're not going to, though. They're not going to do that at all. And then Josh Donaldson. Anthony Rizzo has known he's been the Yankees' 3rd choice from the beginning of this whole process. He's still the 3rd choice, even though Matt Olson's not available. 2-year deal, 3-year deal. I don't know. Would you rather just have Luke Voit than extend Anthony Rizzo for 4 years? I wouldn't. I'd rather keep both guys. Maybe you trade Voit for pitching depth. I'd rather have Rizzo than Voit if I had to pick. But again, Rizzo maybe can't travel to the country of Canada. So that's also a major issue. But what if you're Anthony Rizzo and you've just heard you're the 3rd choice for 3 full months? You spent the whole lockout being like, hearing everybody go, the Yankees will get Anthony Rizzo if they fail to get the 2 people they really want. Well, maybe you screw the Yankees, Anthony Rizzo. Maybe you go somewhere else. Yeah. Somebody else is going to pay you for 3 years. There's not going to be there's going to be enough competition in Anthony Rizzo that 3 years, 40 mil. Padres can top that. Cubs can do that. I mean, a lot of teams can do that. And none of those teams had Rizzo listed as their 3rd choice. The chemistry argument is going to be insane this year. The shortened spring training and shortened free agency period has led to people just ping-ponging around in this tiny period of time. The Josh Donaldson thing that, Cole and Donaldson could have had 4 months to get used to each other, and now they're just going to have to do it on the verge of the regular season. All of this is bizarre, but Anthony Rizzo, I'm currently angry if I'm Anthony Rizzo. I'm looking everywhere but the Yankees. How does New York regroup from here?
I really don't know, because you look at it there, they could get Freeman. If they get Freeman, holy shit, we're blowing the lid off this place. There's no questions about it. But you look at how they've kind of constructed this last trade package. Once again, minimal risk, right? Get rid of Gio Urshela, not really a game-breaking player, not going to kill you if he leaves. Get rid of Gary Sanchez's $8-9 million salary. You already know kind of what he's looking at, what his status is. It's not really anything. Inherit Donaldson's money, you upgrade at third, you get yourself another shortstop. So it's another scenario where the Yankees, they're going over the tax a little bit, or they're creeping closer towards it, but they're not doing anything that's really super risky, or they're not doing anything that's leaving them liable to something, whether it's someone's regression or whether it's overpaying a tax or anything of that nature. So, and the first baseman situation is complicated now, because you have Rizzo, who could have been vaccinated by this point. We don't know. But at the end of last year, he was very much not vaccinated. And that would prevent him from playing 9 games in Toronto. And then you run the risk of just keeping Luke Voit. Brian Cashman said, starting first baseman, that's great. But guess what problem we ran into last year, guys? Not enough lefty at bats. And we're going to run into that problem again this year. You want to know why? Because the only lefties right now on the roster that hit from the left side of the plate are Aaron Hicks and Joey Gallo. And both of them really don't put the ball in play often. And we don't know what to expect at all out of Aaron Hicks. Ender Inciarte is also another potential option, but we have no idea what he's going to do, or if he's even going to make the roster. So if you're looking at balancing the lineup again and diversifying the lineup with enough lefty bats, what's the other option here? Is the other option to just, throw all the money at free? I mean, the options are Freeman and Rizzo, but like you said, does Rizzo want to come back are these players reading? That's also, I don't know. Are they reading rumors? Are they going to the Google News tab, searching their name and reading the rumors? Does Anthony Rizzo know he's a theoretical plan C at this point, based on what the insiders have said? Does he even believe any of that? Does he believe that that's what the Yankees are doing? Are the Yankees telling him something different? I don't know. Nonetheless, he's working out with Cubs teammates this offseason. We've seen it with Ian Happ multiple times. I don't know what his level. He apparently enjoyed being a Yankee. Don't know what his level of interest is now after what all that's happened throughout the offseason. And I think the situation with Luke Voit is complicated too. I don't know how you kind of mend that bridge after kind of telling him to piss off after the injury. And then you bring in Rizzo, and then you don't play Voit when you have the opportunity to DH him. So it's so complicated at this point, and not getting a lefty here is going to be a problem, because where else are they going to upgrade and bring in a lefty? Are there any lefty hitting catchers that they're going to bring in?
Ben Rortvedt, yeah.
Ben Rort, I mean, anybody who actually has hey, Ben, wish you the best of luck. I don't know. I need somebody with more. I think the lineup needs somebody with a more extensive resume at this point for quality lefty at bats, because last year Brett Gardner was giving those quality lefty at bats, quote, quality lefty at bats in the 3-hole and in the 2-hole. Really not what we need. So that's why it's now a little bit more complicated, losing Olson. Look, I agree with what you're saying with the trade package. If the Yankees had Christian Pache and he batted 119 in his first 24 career games, and his best season still stands as his 2019 campaign between AA and AAA, where he OPS 802, they'd be laughing us out the fucking door if that was the top of the package. And I'm sorry.
You got it.
That's just the way it would be. I'm not saying Christian Pache I would take Christian Pache in a trade package, but you have the A's asking for Volpe and more. Volpe, I'm also not saying Volpe is the second coming of whoever you would deem him to be, but he's hot right now, and you pay for when people are hot. You don't pay for when people are cold. Christian Pache is the definition of cold after OPSing 744 last year at AAA in 89 games and having a very underwhelming MLB debut. So, yeah, complicated there. Maybe the Yankees did all they could to get it done, and they drew the line where I probably would have drawn the line at that point too if they thought a couple of other options were attainable. So maybe they're reassessing right now. Maybe they're saying, hey, maybe can we figure out a way to unload another salary and bring in Freeman? unload Chapman and bring in Freeman, dude. It's not that hard. Get a couple of low-impact bullpen arms. We'll be able to make it work. But, yeah, problem stand. Lefty at-bats, unvaccinated in Toronto, just general tenuous relationship type things with Voit and Rizzo. If that is it all true? We're just talking from what we know and what it seems to be. If you went into work one day and they traded for somebody to do your job for 3 months, and then 3 months later that person went on to bigger and better things and they said, hey, you know what, buddy, you're back to crunching those goddamn numbers. How do you feel about it? I'd say, no, I'm fucking not. I'm going out for a cigarette, and we'll talk about this when I feel like it. So yeah, complicated all around. I don't really know what they're going to do. But that's where we stand. I think that's the best way to kind of put this all in perspective.
We're trading number crunchers now. You can do that. I could get traded for my job.
We should. Why can't we?
I know we really should be able to trade. I'm not on the block, I don't think, but if somebody were to suddenly make me available, I would reconsider. Did you see Luke Voit working out, by the way, at camp on Sunday afternoon?
Yeah, what was that?
Because he looked fucking terrible.
Is that for real? Was he joking? Do you think he was joking?
He was doing like a giant leg kick, unlike anything I've ever seen, and just tapping grounders to third base. And somebody in the comments though was like, everybody's a doctor, everybody's been an epidemiologist since early 2020. Everyone's now an expert on Ukraine. Like a bunch of people in the comments were like, the amount of people here, the ignorance, the people who don't know he's just working on something. Okay. Like, is this your first year base? Like, I actually don't know that. First of all, there's no reason for me to make that assumption that what's he working on? Hitting grounders directly into the dirt to third base, messing up his swing. Is that what he's working on with a huge leg kick? It was not encouraging. Josh Donaldson's BP session on Monday afternoon was awesome. Again, you can't take anything from BP sessions unless they're crazy. And the Luke Voit BP session was crazy. We are only 1 year removed from me thinking Luke Voit was not only the present, not only the future, but was sort of someone who was going to be looking at an extension from the Yankees. One injury-prone year changes everything. He was exceptional. He carried the roster for about a week and a half period in August, but other than that, not a lot to stand on, and his knee keeps getting weaker. He had an injury on the same knee over and over again. I am not. You look, if the Yankees don't want to trade him, just like last year, if they end up underwhelmed and they want to keep offense versus sacrificing offense, I also get that, but I don't see him as the starter of a first division playoff team, especially when you look up at the Toronto Blue Jays and see, George Springer in the lineup, even without Marcus Semien. George Springer in the lineup, Bo Bichette in the lineup, Vladdy Jr. in the lineup, Teoscar Hernandez in the lineup. All they do is hit.
How about a rebuttal, though? I got a rebuttal.
Give me.
Keep Voit. Platoon him and DJ at first. I know people don't like DJ at first, but
I don't like DJ at first.
I know I don't like it either, but if the defense is already not that great at first, I think that's probably – is that the worst position to have the worst defense at? We've seen
I think it is.
Is it? We've seen bad defense at catcher that's been debilitating, bad defense at shortstop, bad defense in the corner outfields. We've seen bad, not great, below average defense at first base these last few years, and it hasn't been anywhere near as infuriating as all. I mean, in my opinion, I could, other people could feel differently, but in my opinion, the defense that we've seen, the defensive lapses we've seen elsewhere have been much more detrimental. So what if you just have a roving situation where you constantly have, Judge, Gallo, Stanton, Voit, and even Donaldson rotating around in the DH spot, and you plug DJ at third, plug DJ at first. He could play. I don't agree with having DJ be a utility guy, but unless they trade somebody else, that's going to be the reality, right? He's going to be bouncing around the infield. He's going to be eating up reps when Gleyber Torres needs rest or gets injured or whatever. So I don't know. That's my little rebuttal there. I mean, Luke Voigt's still a good baseball player. Like, it's good to have on your team, right?
I think he is.
Yeah,
I think he is. I lost track there a little bit last year. The comments right now, not kind to Brian Cashman. Cashman will destroy this team. It's headed downhill from Slick Rick. I seen him at Slick Rick Darula. Thanks for checking in. I think I saw you at halftime of a Nets-Hornets game a couple years ago. Janine Long, time for the Yankees to upgrade a general manager and fire Cashman. It's really hard to fire Cashman, everybody.
Yes.
And they're not doing it yet. They're not firing the manager yet. They're back. Well, imagine if they just Braves though, and Brian Cashman tomorrow didn't tell him. The new GM of the Yankees is Freddie Freeman. I mean, I'm all in on Freddie Freeman, but I'm not even going to talk about it because it's not happening. So why would I waste podcast time being like, potentially the left-handed power of MVP candidate Freddie Freeman would be a boon to the... Yeah, of course. They're not signing him. Although the dorks, like MLB nerds and the resurgence bandwagon, have said Correa is a guarantee, and they've said Olson's a guarantee. They've never said Freeman's a guarantee, so maybe Freeman actually is going to be a Yankee, because none of the incredibly wrong people who are always wrong have mentioned Freeman at all. And again, they're always wrong. Before we move on to the final part of the segment, I do think it's worth mentioning that some folks who have gone around spreading rumors on Twitter, who seem to think that being wrong on Twitter is the worst thing you can be, and have previously said that the Yanks Go Yard Twitter account will face no punishment for saying the Yankees were going to get swept by the Red Sox when they actually lost 3 out of 4 games, which is similar to a sweep. They think being wrong on Twitter is the worst thing you can be about the team. They were so wrong on Twitter about the Matt Olson trade. They were beyond wrong on Twitter about the Carlos Correa trade. So if you don't think our Twitter account is allowed to let it slide, right? If you think we're gonna slide when we make an incorrect prediction about a random midsummer series, you just were the wrongest ever. You were the wrongest ever. So if that's something that really matters to you, I hope you're having a tough day. Yeah. And MLB blocked me for calling them out for misinformation, and then they did more misinformation. So best of luck. If they say anything interesting, just screenshot it to me. Don't tweet it to me because I can't read it. But I hope the nerds are having a great day. I hope the nerds are going live soon, talking about how the Yankees are no longer the favorite for Correa, and actually the Astros are involved. That would be a great nerds Twitter space. Slick Rick actually is asking a question. Do you guys think the franchise is going in the right direction? I mean, again, if yesterday's trade, the Donaldson blow up, is part 1 of 3, then yeah, I absolutely think it's going in the right direction. What did you see in 2020 that you needed to maintain? Like, what's the argument for keeping Gary Sánchez and maybe keeping Urshela another year too long and letting him walk because they're not extending him either? What did you see from that 2020 and 2021 team that indicated they don't need a shakeup? They definitely need a shakeup. And so if they're willing to pay for Josh Donaldson and then they're willing to pay for like 2 or 3 more things, then they're absolutely going in the right direction. But if they're just going to continue to watch people not get developed and sign Garrett Cole and never sign anyone to a high dollar deal ever again, then no, that's not the correct direction. Kylie Crowder, we see you. I feel terrible. The A's are another example of the A's are one of the reasons that we were locked out for so long, quite frankly. Yeah. They're a team that doesn't behave like a baseball team, and their owner doesn't behave like somebody who's got money to throw around. And I feel terrible for you. I hope you continue supporting Matt Olson. He's going home to the Atlanta Braves.
That is nice.
I hope that's a minor comfort to you, and I hope you at least get to have some fun with him. We're going to support Gary Sánchez and Gio Urshela on the Twins. Like we said, just because we're done with them in theory doesn't mean we're done with them. We're going to keep following them. But if you're an A's fan and you're you wear 28 for Matt Olson, keep doing that. We're in an era where you can't side with it. It's tough to root for laundry these days.
Yeah, it is.
And I know it's tough to hear this right now, but I would say, keep supporting your man. Matt Olson rules. I would have loved to have him in New York. That's why it's so sad too. Matt Olson seemed like the perfect profile for Yankee Stadium, the perfect personality for this team. He's got a cute dog, which again, as soon as we lost Anthony Rizzo, the first thing I did was look up if the replacement is a cute dog like Anthony Rizzo does. He did. I was ready. Back in November. That's why the lies sting so much when we're told, a deal's going to happen and people are so confident they're staking their reputation on it. Then they're disappearing. My reputation's been forever tarnished by incorrectly predicting that 4-game series in the middle of July. So I hope yours is too. Let's just wrap this up with some random, Yankees gibberish at the back end. Domingo Germán is going to start the season on the IL. So for everybody who said that the Yankees had enough pitching depth, they didn't need to go for someone like Rodon, and they didn't need to. I mean, your brain is truly broken when it resets every year, and you got people saying that such and such team has enough pitching depth. No one ever has enough pitching depth, and the Yankees rotation had Luis Severino at the top of it. So not only do the Yankees not have enough pitching depth, they have a guy who's going to throw like 100 innings in the number 2 hole. Need guys now. And so, everyone who said the Yankees had enough pitching depth has been proven wrong after 15 minutes because Domingo Germán's going on the IL to start the year. Tyone is reportedly ready to start the season. That's extremely weird.
Yeah.
And we welcome it. But again, up one, down another. The Yankees definitely need some starting pitching. What say you on that? I mean, are we going to make a trade now? Are we going to call the A's back up? Sean Murphy and all those pitchers are still there. The Rockies are aggressively pursuing Chris Bryant.
That's cool.
John Heyman, and talks are at ownership level. That's something. But what is going on here?
Well, look, there is no argument here in favor of the Yankees starting pitching or pitching staff in general. They've witnessed they had an uncharacteristically successful season from a rotation standpoint, which is great. Last year was awesome. We saw what their potential was, but that's not going to be sustained for a multitude of reasons. So Sweeney Murdy it was Friday, was talking about how that they don't have a bad staff, and he's not wrong. Cole, Severino, Montgomery, Tyone, Germán, Cortez, Michael King, and Luis Gil, but there's a lot of problems with all those guys. Luis Severino, 18 regular season innings in 3 years. What is he going to bring to the table? I think at this point, all you can factor in is Cole and Montgomery to give you 160-plus innings, and everybody else is a bit of a question mark. I know Tyone can go the distance, but how many times has he done that? And what's this injury going to look like? How is it going to affect him? Will there be another injury? We don't know. Last year, we were concerned about his arm, and then it ended up being his ankle. That kind of derailed the remainder of the year for him. And the Yankees would have been in trouble deeper in the postseason. Had they beaten the Red Sox, would have been problematic. You look at Domingo Germán, I don't view him as a viable option. He's an okay starter with solid potential who blows up more often than not. We've seen it happen occasion after occasion. They relegated him to the bullpen at some point last year. Clearly didn't trust him. Went on the IL with a shoulder injury. Seemed phantom to me. Shut him down for the rest of the year. Domestic violence allegations from 2 seasons ago too. Derailed the Yankees 2020 in some capacity. Don't view that as a viable option. I think Luis Gil is great. He has things to work on. I don't pencil him in as a starter at this point, someone who can give you 100-plus innings. Michael King has proven to be better in a multi-inning relief role, which I would love for him. I think that's great. I don't view him as a starter. I don't want him and Domingo Germán, for example, making 25-plus starts combined. I don't think that's a recipe for winning. And then you have Nestor Cortez, who is the shit. Love Nestor Cortez. Don't think anybody dislikes him. 93 innings in a single season is his career high. How much higher is he going to be able to go? That's why the miss on Chris Bassett for 2 not game-breaking prospects there. He went to the Mets. Steve Cohen, God bless, dude. Love what he's doing. I love the energy of that fan base. Just stay out of my fucking business because I'm sick of hearing from you about anything that has to deal with me and my team. Enjoy yourself. But Bassett passing on there. I mentioned Rodon earlier in the podcast. They're willing to go higher for Justin Verlander, who has less of a recent successful track record coming off major arm surgery. Like, why not just pay for that? I'm not saying the Yankees should have went after Kikuchi, but goes to the Blue Jays for a very cost-effective cost-effective contract of 3 years and $36 million. Now their rotation is deeper. So you just look at those moving parts. Sonny Gray gets traded to the Twins. I'm not advocating for that, never at all. But there were options out there, a multitude of ways for the Yankees to get better and lengthen. Forget even getting better, just lengthening the rotation. Beyond Garrett Cole in this rotation, the Yankees have committed $11.6 million, which is not even really committed because it's all team-controlled players. And then they have 3 pre-arbitration players who could log starts or get innings. So you call that an investment in starting pitching? It's absolutely not. They've invested in the absolute back end of the bullpen with a prohibitive price with Zach Britton and Aroldis Chapman. This ridiculous amount, $30 million for 2 relievers anchoring the back of the bullpen. And then you have Garrett Cole making $36 million at the front end. So you're looking at $66 million for 3 dudes who can't carry. It's impossible for them to carry the load. The season's too long. There's way too many innings to eat up, and they need more. They need guys to get rest. They need certain matchups against certain teams. Insane how this has flown under the radar, and we're just taking a crazy like reverse regression. It was an overachieving year for the starting rotation, and now we're just like, oh yeah, starting rotation's good. We got enough people, so like we're set there. No, it's absolutely not. It's on the right track. The depth is there. The pieces are there. It needs supplementation. you need a number 2 or a number 3 here. I won't even go as far to say you need a number 2. I think a guy like Bassett, or I know who could be considered a number 2, but kind of isn't, not really, Manaea, or just literally anybody who can fill in and make 28 starts is what you need. And the Yankees are not doing that at this moment. And I don't know who's left, and I don't know how it's going to improve. So stop thinking that the rotation and the bullpen are at all okay. There's a lot that needs to be done. The foundation's there, the bones are there, but the support is not.
At least we're not the Dodgers, who lost Joe Kelly, who lost Corey Knebel, and who are about to lose Kenley Jansen as well. That is a bleak. Probably. I mean, of the quotes from Kelly Jansen that he needs one last payday or whatever, they're not giving it to him.
No.
So we'll find out. But anyway, we could be in worse shape. They're preparing their Freddie Freeman offer as we speak. Everybody's saying the Yankees offered Freeman, but the main issue is geography. Of course, that had nothing to do with CC. That had nothing to do with Garrett Cole. If the Yankees go nuts and outbid, then they will absolutely acquire Freddie Freeman. But it's not going to happen. Another one more interesting thing before we wrap up. Brian Cashman's interview with Meredith Marakovitz said Josh Donaldson brings an edge to the Yankees. As Jack Curry says, a GM doesn't mention that unless he thinks that edge is lacking. I agree with that assessment. Isn't that interesting? There really was edge lacking. It's very true. We also promised, we'll sign off in a second. We promised we would do the home run calls, the John Sterling home run calls for the new Yankees. I have no idea. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa is probably going to hit one, so it's going to help. But like Isaiah Kiner-Falefa hit it far, I feel like is an easy one for John. Falefa wrap with onions and white sauce. I don't know. Kiner-Falefa is so long. It has to fit into an old Broadway song or something. Donald, son of Sam. The prodigal Donald son has returned. Donaldson said duck to a guy in the upper deck.
Yeah,
a guy in the bleachers. Good.
Yeah, this is your area of expertise. I can't think of one single thing.
Donaldson says duck. I feel like that actually might be it. Ben Rortvet, do we have to do that?
I mean, he's jacked.
Bend over for Rortvet. A home Rortvet. I mean, nothing sounds like that. It's a name that literally maps to no noises in the English language. So I truly have no idea. Rort veteran swing. Check back. If he makes the team, I'll do Ben Rortvet. Veterans minimum. I don't know. That is it.
That's a good one.
It's not great. It's an NBA term. That's it for this edition of the Yanks Go Yard podcast. We've really enjoyed going live with you. And the news, man, there's news. I mean, this was more fun than breaking the end of the lockout to me personally. Yeah. Gary Sánchez gone, very sorry to see. Gio Urshela gone, very sorry to see. I'm excited for Josh Donaldson. I really am, until the season opens and I learn why I shouldn't be. But he does have an MVP pedigree. He's an angry man. We could use a little anger in the lineup. But missing out on Olson really stings. That package is crazy. We couldn't top it because they would have forced it. They would have said Anthony Volpe is Christian Pache. Yeah. Even though you and I know Christian Pache and Anthony Volpe are in different pedigrees at this moment, because Pache has already proven he can hit at the big league level. But
outfield versus shortstop too, not really not comparable.
No, Ramon Laureano probably the next to go, probably a Philly. We'll have some more for you on Thursday, I'm sure. We're going to be live on Thursday for probably a shorter show because we got an interview on Wednesday night that's going to run on Thursday's episode. And that's exciting. And eyeball emojis, it's someone who is very much affected by the trade that went down on Sunday night. So I find that to be interesting.
Look at that timing.
Yeah, look at that timing. Thank goodness we didn't talk to this person last week when we almost maybe kind of did. Until next time, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Drop us those 5-star reviews. Give us those mailbag questions. We'd be more than happy to answer them. And find us live on YouTube, 2:00 Mondays and Thursdays. And again, if something goes absolutely nuts the next couple of days, we are happy to log on live and bring it to you. We're going to be flexible like that, except for on Thursday, right after the live show, we've got a party. Unfortunately, we have a party for March Madness, so it's going to be a weird one. Can you say weird one? Como se dice weird one? Until next time, you can find me on Twitter at Adam Weinrib. Thomas Carinante, where can the people find you?
At Tommy's_takes. And if you are a person, an individual, a human being who thinks that you can get ahead, cut corners by reporting fake stuff
Mhm.
on Twitter, which I'm sick of seeing, and I'm sick of people falling victim to it, or at least just buying into it. You might not fall victim to it, but you're going to be like, oh man, like this is a possibility. So just stop doing it, dude. You're not doing anybody any favors. You're making yourself look like an idiot. And more times than not, you're going to be wrong because the unexpected thing usually happens before the expected thing, in case you didn't see what just happened this offseason. What the Yankees just did, nobody predicted. There wasn't even a loose link to it at any point in the offseason, and that's how this goes down. So stop taking the obvious links and saying you're hearing something. You've never heard anything from anybody who possesses any sort of importance in any area of this world. Just wanted to let you guys know that. Wanted to let everybody know to make sure to go to the right sources, go to the right places for content, information, and all that. Yanks Go Yard's one of them. We don't report fake news. We do follow the trusted sources, and we make good stories out of it. So head on over to yanksgoyard.com. All the written content there for you. All this fallout analysis, long-form content there to break all this down on top of hearing our voices. Sometimes you might not want to hear us because we are annoying. So you can read us. The prose is, I'd say the prose is really good too. Talk to us on the official Yanks Go Yard Twitter account at Yanks Go Yard FS. We'll be there to answer any questions, engage in this discourse. Had a great time in the chat today. Thanks, everybody, for showing up. We'll talk to you next on Thursday. Good interview. Hopefully short pod with some more news. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, Matt Olson.